Trill seas are purple, Bajoran seas are green, and Gabriel Bell is the hero that history leaves unseen. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello, hello.
We're also joined by very special guest, Deep Space Nine writer, Mr. Robert Hewitt Wolfe. And also, it looks like somebody catching up on their Deep Space Nine information, just to make sure he doesn't get anything wrong. Mr. Ira Steven Behr.
All right.
You know that Michael Dorn played Worf?
You remember that show, Deep Space Nine, Ira?
In Terry Irvin's book, The Deep Space Nine Companion. And if Terry says it, you know it has to be true.
Yeah, you got to do the intros. You got to let Ira do the intros, man. That was perfect.
I don't know. That rhyme was pretty good, too.
Thank you. Well, Ira and I are going to duke it out between the encyclopedia and the rhyme that I made up that was pretty simple. Very quickly. Yeah, I mean, they mentioned the Trill seas were purple, Bajoran seas were green, right? And a couple little lines there when Dax and Kira were noticing the seas on Earth. And Gabriel Bell, what an awesome story. So today we're doing a review of episode 11 of season 3, Past Tense Part 1 of Deep Space Nine. It's directed by Reza Badi.
Reza Badi.
Got it. And oh, by the way, it airs January 2nd, 1995, which is kind of the first thing we wanted to cover here very quickly. As Cirroc and I have been reviewing every episode, of season 3 for the last 3 months, this is the window in which there is no other Star Trek series on television. From the beginning of season 3 up until Past Tense Part 2, there's this 12 or 13 episode window where you guys are the only series. And this is all you got as the only series. And, I was kind of hoping if you could look back to, whatever it was, 1994, the second half of 1994. Do you remember that time? And did you guys feel like, okay, this is our chance to really shine, or were you just business as usual?
Shine. Oh, yeah, we were shining. Oh, God, yes.
To shine, the studio would have had to pay money to, actually promote us, I think, during that window.
Yeah.
There was no shining.
No shining.
It was definitely business as usual. I mean, the truth is, there was so much attention that had been paid to the end of TNG, and that was being paid to the ramping up towards Voyager, that, whatever. We were always the middle child.
Wasn't there?
And the movie, and Generations was like...
Yeah, so, come on.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. There was First Contact, which was such a big movie, and it was that year. You're right.
Yeah, so...
Yeah, not much shining.
Nah.
And that's just the way we liked it. That's what we told one another.
You know what? What shines to me is the actual episode. This episode is probably one of the best episodes I think I've seen so far up to this point. I love when you guys take the characters outside of the station and kind of do something really quirky and different by putting them somewhere else. And in this case, in 2024 in San Francisco. Where did this idea kind of come from?
Well, I think it was Robert and myself both came at it in our own ways. I mean, it started out, Robert, you had the germ of it that you kept pestering about.
So yeah, the germ of it, I had this idea of Sisko waking up in Palisades Park in Santa Monica, in 1995, being woken up by a cop who's like, "Move, you can't sleep here," and Sisko being like, "What's happening? I'm a starship captain." And the idea of whether he really was a starship captain in some kind of weird reality, or whether he was schizophrenic and that Deep Space Nine was all in his mind. And I pitched it to Ira 5 times, and he kept turning me down. And then I think this is my version of the story. So Ira, correct me if I'm wrong, but I knew that Ira was obsessed with Attica, the prison riots at Attica. And so I thought about the idea of putting them into like in a homeless internment camp and then having a big Attica-style riot. And that would mean there wouldn't be 2024, there wouldn't be 1994, that it would be 30 years later, so, that it would be early 21st century. So that's how I finally like tricked him into doing it. That's my version.
Yeah, my version is I was obsessed with Attica from Dog Day Afternoon. So however Attica came, whether it came from him or I, but the thing that definitely made it happen, and this I'm certain of, I was down in Santa Monica. I cannot remember why, but I was down in Santa Monica on the promenade there, that grassy promenade, and it was a beautiful day. And I walked down, I was by myself. I wasn't with my wife, which is why I can't remember what purpose I had down in Santa Monica. But I went down to look at the ocean, and there were these homeless people lying there in the grass, and all these people taking photos of each other and the Pacific and all that natural beauty. And literally at one point, somebody walked over the legs of this homeless guy, like not even paying attention to him. And I came back, I think the words I used they were like living statues. That's how people related to them. And it was remarkable. And that's when the whole idea of the sanctuary districts and all that stuff, what are we going to do with the homeless? And so that's what I came back with. And I think that's when the show, came alive. But yeah, it all started out with this idea that later on became something we used for Far Beyond the Stars, which is the idea of Sisko being schizophrenic or his trying to convince people or thinking he was a possible captain. In Far Beyond the Stars, obviously he was writing about it. But then, having watched it, I'll say this. I didn't watch part 2. I only watched part 1.
Nice.
I haven't seen it since it aired. And I will say without a doubt, it could have been a better show if we did it in season 5.
Why is that?
Well, because we still had to do a lot of crap that we were trapped into, given the time, where we spent way too much time in this episode talking about chronoton particles and these terrible scenes with O'Brien and Kira standing there reciting crap that no one cares about. We went through do you remember all the rewrites we went through that did not bother any of the stuff we came up with for time travel? We had to keep coming back with more and more different variations.
Well, that was definitely a time when we were being forced to force feed the audience a lot of technobabble. And the episode suffers a little from that. But I think that the good thing is that, I almost feel like people watching those scenes now and then probably just tune that stuff to hell out, and it's like,
I tuned it out.
I did too. I was like, whatever, I don't care. They'll figure it out. And then, but I think that the scenes that are, the rest of the scenes are pretty good and are still hold up.
They're not just pretty good, in my opinion. I'd say prophetic. And I don't know how you guys came up with all this stuff. I don't know if you're really from the future and just came back to do the show.
If that were true, I would own a lot more Apple stock.
Yeah.
And also, those computers wouldn't be so gigantic. That was my favorite part about it. I was like, "What is that?
Those computers were super clunky." That's pretty good. But
Well, I thought that was funny too. Just the fact that you're actually trying to do. It's a past tense show showing the future of our present day when you were actually filming. So you have to make a technology that's not that advanced, which is hilarious to me just in itself.
That was our best guess in 1994 what 2024 would look like. And those ties, like the way that the ties were just like a little ribbon, like a little vertical ribbon that Chris Brenner was wearing all the time.
Yeah, the outfits were great. But I just think like
good.
Sanctuary District right? That's the terminology that's used in the episode. But sanctuary cities are where we live in today. And I just want to know, I know this came before that because I didn't hear the terminology sanctuary city when in the 90s when we were doing this. So did the Star Trek fans kind of steal this episode and turn it into that?
Well, I'll tell you where Sanctuary came from without a doubt. It came from Logan's Run.
Yeah, 100%.
Logan's Run, where they're in the book, they're looking for Sanctuary, which is where the guys, once you turn 21 and you have to die, there's a place where you could run and find Sanctuary. So that's what we used. And then we came up with districts, but Sanctuary is from Logan's Run.
Yeah. Okay. The other thing I see is that, we have a huge homeless problem here in Los Angeles. Right. And it seems like, I've walked down streets that look like some of the streets that are, featured in this episode.
You bet.
And it's actually sad.
Yeah. I mean, the sad thing is it was already a problem in 1994 when we were writing it. Sure. My wife at the time was working at a shelter, like a treatment facility for the homeless mentally ill, which is part of why I was probably a little more aware of it. But it was already a problem. It's just a problem that has just been accelerated over time. It just hasn't gotten any better. And, a lot of it goes down to like the elimination of a lot of the social service net that made that not happen until the Reagan administration. And it was just like the fallout was already starting then, and it just has never stopped.
That's it.
And Cirroc has mentioned a few times. Sometimes I'll try to ask something like, do you prefer cats or dogs? And Cirroc will be like, all right, enough out of you. Let's talk about the homeless problem or something like that. Sometimes he'll remind me of things that are a little more important. And it's true. I think, what do we have, like 60,000 homeless people in Los Angeles or a number similar to that. And what you guys put in this episode, what were they called? Ghosts, dims, and gimmies.
Yeah.
And the dims are the ones, that I kind of want to mention right now, because that is something that we do have such a mental illness problem, and that we're not really dealing with it well right now. We're only getting to the point where we're getting educated on it. And of course, they're calling them dims in the episode. But we recognize that right away. You even mentioned schizophrenia, how we can help these people, but rather than help them in the episode, they just put a wall around them, and that's it. Was there anything specific that you wanted to convey there, or were you just like, this is what we're seeing? We're seeing a lot of addicts that are sick in that way. We're seeing a lot of people that are sick with schizophrenia or bipolar disorder.
Yeah, again, I think coming from my wife's experience more than mine of working with the homeless mentally ill, I had an awareness that a lot of these people were people who could and should be in some sort of treatment program. And, she worked at a program that did bring people in, but it wasn't a lot. I think I don't remember how many residents her program had at a time. But it was, a drop in the bucket, even back then. And, I think we're just continuing to see that. I think, her awareness of it helped inform my awareness of it. And like Ira said, even in 94, you could see like 10 guys, 15 people sleeping in Palisades Park at a given point in time, or on the promenade, or, it was already a problem, a lot of problem.
I mean, you got to be awake and alive and have eyes. I mean, while we were doing the episodes, Mayor Reardon, there was in the LA Times, they were going to find a place where they were going to stash the homeless. I mean,
right after the episode came out, right around the same time.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
I brought it into the office. I said, guys, it's happening.
Yeah.
And they decided not to, but that would have been it right there. We would have had, who the hell knows what we would have had, and we might have it still,
Still. I mean, right now, the best, I don't know if it's the best possible version, but there's like a not horrible version of it going on right now, like not more than 2 miles from me, where they've taken the parking lot of this park near me, and they've put 100 like little portable, like a little trailers. Like it's a trailer park. They turned it into a trailer park to house the homeless that are vulnerable, so they won't die from COVID. It's basically a way to keep people, to hopefully keep them from getting sick. And like, despite that, I know that there's a fair number of people in there right now, and they're free to go. And it, you know, like I said, it's probably the most benevolent version of that. But it's, you know, it's still, despite that, you drive down the street not far from me, and there's, you know, or in front of the VA in West LA, and there's like, you know, 50 tents up outside. So it's just a problem that we're not committing to in the way we need to, or maybe we're finally starting to, I don't know. But we're still,
I mean, before the
30 years later.
Before the COVID, I was shocked. You know, my wife is on the Laurel Canyon, you know, whatever they are, boards or whatever, you know, community, you know, outreach stuff. And it's amazing because you think of Laurel Canyon as a place, you know, the whole hippie and, you know, progressive attitude and stuff like that. And the stuff she reads to me, it's this anger. Where are the police? Get rid of them. All it is about get rid of them. Get rid of them. There's no attempt to understand. There's no attempt to feel or empathize. You know, it's like get rid of them. It's dangerous. They carry disease. It's like demonizing them, and it's the whole non-human thing. You know, stop thinking them as human beings. It's just this vitriol, and that's Laurel Canyon. So I could just imagine what's going on in other places. People just want their problems to go away, like they want the COVID to go away. They don't want to do anything. They don't want to be involved. They don't want to, you know, help solve the problem. They just want it to disappear. So
they just want it over there.
Yeah.
They want to say, oh, I feel so bad for them and I want to help them, but just not here. Just
Well, that was part of the idea of the sanctuary districts that comes out in the episode, was that part of the problem was that the people on the outside didn't really know what was going on the inside. It was like, once you're in there, people just forgot about you, and that was part of the issue. It was an issue of negligence and lack of human care and kindness and concern.
Yeah.
That the whole idea being that, like, put these people in a sanctuary district, they're taken care of, they're fed, and then never look inside again, never think about what's actually going on in there. It's like, you know, oh, illegal immigrants are crossing the border. Well, we'll put them somewhere in a holding facility, and then we won't look inside that holding facility, or we won't think about what's happening to the children inside that holding facility, or we won't worry about whether they're getting fed or whether they're getting sick or dying, you know, or being sexually assaulted, or all those things. It's out of sight, out of mind, and out of sight, out of mind was one of the sort of big dangers that we were sort of talking about. That sort of, even like, you know, in the most well-intentioned communities, people just want the problem to go away, and then they don't want to think about it anymore. They want to think it's solved, or it's not their problem anymore, because they're not seeing people on their street.
I think what you say played out well in the scene with Terry Farrell, with Dax, and the guy that saves
Chris
her
Brenner.
and rescues her. Right.
Yeah.
That moment that they had when she says, but they have walls around there, and, you know, what's going on in there? And he kind of has a moment where he's like, oh, like, I'm trying not to think about what's happening over there. And now you're forcing me to process this information and actually confront something that we're trying to look away from.
Yeah, that was the idea of that whole B story, was to be able to sort of see the attitudes of the people on the outside, you know, and to see how that attitude was part of the problem, really, you know, maybe even the source of the problem. I mean, also, like, you know, part of the gag that Ira and I were going for was that, you know, Bashir and Sisko, they get thrown in there real fast. Two brown-skinned men,
right, yeah.
But, you know, pretty white girl with some weird tattoos, you're fine. We'll take care of you.
Yeah,
so
use my computer.
Yeah, you want to use my computer? You want to
My home address?
Want to come to a party? You want me to give you some clothing?
I booked
I'll do all
5
that
nights
for
at
you.
at a
You know?
5-star hotel for you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
One of the things that did really work well for me, at least when I watched it, what I call the 3 M's: Metzler, Miller, and military. The 3 supporting cast members. I had forgotten how good the Chris Brenner character was, because he's this powerful guy, but he's so weak. And I forgot how that Jim Metzler actually captured that sense of, behind all that power is a real kind of empty human being who thinks he's a hero and is nothing like that. And I thought that really came across well. I thought, Dick Miller, who played the older security guard, who no one would have cast as that part. They would have gotten Clancy Brown, some big hulking guy, but Dick is a great character actor, also the godfather of my daughter.
No way.
And I knew Dick would be great in the role because he's so human. And when we do next week's discussion, I got a great story about Avery and Dick that is quite nice, actually.
Oh man, I want to hear it. Oh well.
Oh well.
Yeah, it won't be me though. I just co-wrote the story for that one, so I don't want to hear.
And I thought, Frank Military, who became, in part 2, became an obsession with me, because I wanted to show that the guy who killed Gabriel Bell, I didn't want to demonize that character. I wanted to make that character, be more than just the villain of the piece. And so I thought all the actors, and Bill Smitrovich, who plays Webb.
Yeah, Bill is great.
Bill is great. The casting, I thought, was really good. All those people did really, really well.
I can't remember the name of the actress who plays the processing, the intake woman.
She was great.
But she's terrific. Boy,
Yeah,
she's good.
So good.
And just carrying the burden of being the people who are actually trying to deal with it, but it's overwhelming and it's too much, and you're just doing your job and you're a little burned out. No, I thought she was terrific too.
Scenes. To be honest, for me, in this viewing, the best scenes were in the processing center. I thought all the scenes felt really good, really true. There wasn't any kind of TV, stretching to make a point. I thought it was done really, really well. So I still have problems watching. I know it's only me, but Avery without the goat and with the hair still annoys the shit out of me. I didn't remember at the time that this was.
It didn't bother me that much this time.
It bugged me. I gotta say, it bugged me too. And part of it is Avery's. I think part of the issue for the first 3 seasons of the show is that Avery's acting style is it's a little theatrical. It's a little big. And when he's got the hair and no beard, he looks like physically, he looks a little bit like a square, as much as a square as Avery can ever look, and then he's Avery, right? And so there's this weird mismatch, disconnect between the visual of Avery and the soul of Avery, in a way. That's what an actor does. They sort of let you see inside their soul, as a great actor does that. And so you're seeing Avery's truth, and on the outside looks like a lie.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. That's really cool.
It's tough,
really
man.
Well said. Really well said.
I myself, I was sold when he picked up that shotgun, After he picked up the shotgun and he shot it, then I was like, oh, shit, he's back. He's the tough guy. Don't mess with this guy.
Yeah. I tell you what, guys, we got to take a super quick break. But Cirroc and I are always noticing how good the casting is. That's one of the themes we keep talking about. On top of the great writing, we're if you guys have ever seen our show, all we talk about is the writing, the casting, the acting, and Cirroc notices the wardrobe. And there was actually a wardrobe thing I thought about Cirroc with, but we'll have to talk about that later if we have time. We'll be right back on The Seventh Rule. Hey everybody, and welcome back to The Seventh Rule with Cirroc, Lofton, Robert Hewitt Wolfe, and Ira Steven Behr. My name's Ryan T. Husk, and I've got Sisko and Bashir behind me. They're also joining us. How you guys doing? Everything good? Nice long break?
Oh, yeah.
We won't get too much into it, but Ira did say that he got himself a refreshing beverage. And you want to show us what it is without any kind of promotion?
There it is. You're converting people, Ryan.
But I especially liked his description of the flavor.
Okay, well, you want to talk about that, or you want to get into the...
I guess we'll get back into the episode.
I want to get into the episode.
I did want to point out something kind of piggybacking on what Cirroc said about, being prophetic. A lot of times people make movies where it's 20 years in the future or 40 years in the future. And now we've actually lived to the point, like, for example, Back to the Future in 2015, I think it was. And we look back and we go, boy, were they off, or some things were right, some things were wrong. But this has got to be the most accurate 30 years in the future. Now, we're not there yet, but it's really close. It's really accurate. It's not like these things that say, flying cars and skateboards that do whatever and self-sealing stem bolts. But it's actually like you guys got very, very close in a lot of ways, except for the washing machine sized computers that I mentioned. But that's not on you guys. You didn't write.
Well, you can't watch this episode. I mean, now, given the fact that the world has gone through the George Floyd experience and we've seen the outrage that has come out of it. And now, I'm watching this episode. I'm seeing riots. I'm seeing sanctuary cities. I'm seeing this civil unrest. And it's almost like when I look at the TV, I'm seeing the same exact thing. So it's hard for me to kind of separate the two. That's why I really thought you guys are so prophetic by just like nailing it almost on the date,
But that's, that's nice, but that's not what we were, thinking about or caring about, especially back then. We were trying to tell a story, and that's the idea whether the Yankees were 1998 or 1999, those are fun things to talk about. But one of the things that I had a problem with, and I look back on it now, and I'm not sure that I was right back then. I had a hard time with these type of shows. I was not a big fan of, the issue-oriented Star Trek shows, because I used to say, you're preaching to the converted. The people who are watching the show already have that mindset. So it's all about this. It's all about patting ourselves on the back. Aren't we human? Aren't we, our hearts are in the right place? Big freaking deal, So that's why I kept saying no to both this and Far Beyond the Stars until I felt there was something that within the story itself, it was worth telling about the characters who we care about. So that's all that's what we were trying to do. The show, even if we had gotten everything wrong, which very possibly could have happened. And usually, like you say, does happen. The show still would have had to have some kind of meaning beyond all that. It still had to talk about the human condition in a way that made that show, worth doing. And I think it did, because that problem of how we deal with the other, how we deal with the culture and people who are different than us, or people have this fear. I mean, you're seeing it now come, people have fear of the other, of people of color, because people of color partly are in the history, or people who are disenfranchised and are poor and don't live as well. So we don't want to look at that, though. That's bad. Keep that away from us, because we don't want to be that. And those are big things to deal with in a TV show where you also have to talk about chronoton particles. You know, I mean, it's you know, in ways I wish we would have had more time. You know, Avery, you know, hit me with the idea that, you know, Far Beyond the Stars should have been a two-parter, and why didn't we do that? I was watching this and thinking this could have, if we did it in season 5, we could have done this as a three-parter. Because what we failed to do, or not failed to do, we didn't have the time to do, is we should have done, instead of talking about it only, we should have done what Bashir was talking about. We should have shown Bashir and Sisko losing a bit of their humanity by living in those conditions. So people that we know, 24th century human beings, stuck in that kind of situation will not be Starfleet officers, will not be as perfect as they think they are. They will get hungry. They will get grumpy. They will get angry. And that would have been lovely to see. That would have been really challenging to the audience. You know, and that's what you have to do. You have to challenge the audience on a basic level, not whether or not you're getting history right. That's a good thing. I mean, it's a sweet thing that it worked out that way, I guess. Bad for us in 2020.
Yeah. It's supposed to be a cautionary tale, people.
About, okay, we're good. Yes, look at us. Nostradamus. You know, so there you go.
Yeah.
I think the other reason it feels like we were more accurate than a lot of these shows. What Ira was saying, we weren't really concerned with trying to predict the future. So we didn't spend a whole lot of screen time trying to see what the vehicles looked like, or how people like made their livings, or whether there were robots or not, or any of those other kind of things. We didn't like go into the futurism. We were very concerned with two very specific places and two very specific groups of people, mostly with what was happening in the Sanctuary District, and then to a lesser extent what was happening outside, in a very, very kind of like, it's almost a bottle show. You know, they're almost like the two shows almost exist as these very, very small, they're very small and contained in a weird way. Like, we did spend the money on the exterior of the Sanctuary District, even though it was on the back lot. But we don't see a tremendous amount of San Francisco beyond the subway station and Brenner's office in the Sanctuary District. And we didn't try to be predictive. We didn't spend a lot of time like, you know, the most we did was like, okay, well, you know, news will mostly be on the internet, you know, and people will connect even more on computers than they did. And the homeless problem will still be here, and it'll be worse, you know? I mean, that was about the extent of the militarizing the police, you know, but that was already stuff that was starting to happen.
But see, that right there is partially part of the reason why people think Deep Space Nine is so great. Your focus was less on the technobabble and more about the actual story, the actual human experience and human nature, and which is the meat of everything. I mean, we all, you know, the nerds, we all love like the technobabble, and it's true. We kind of pay attention sometimes, and sometimes we don't pay attention to the technobabble. We go, all right, we get it. They're working on it. We get it. They're working on a solution, but back to the real story. There's LaCroix, and you guys. Absolutely. It comes through that the focus was on, you know, making the points and telling the story, and less about what silly gadgets we're going to have in 30 years.
Yeah. And I think a lot of science fiction, when it tries to be near future predictive, gets really into that kind of stuff. You know, it gets really into like, you know, even the Gibson books or Snow Crash, you know, they get into like big changes in society and big changes in how we deal with the world, and big, you know, everybody's plugging into their heads into the computer directly and all that other stuff. And what I think the reason we were more accurate maybe was because we didn't try to do that. We didn't go for big changes. We were really talking about 1994 when we were talking about 2024. So everything we saw was just a tiny, like a little extension of 1994, just enough futurism to take a little of the, like, to make it a little less on the nose. But really what we cared about was the story of what Sisko and Bashir were going through, and what the parallel story of what was happening with Dax, and that, and the loss of humanity for the people, and like how it was affecting our characters. And so part of it is like, we didn't put a lot of chips in that pot. So, you know, It looks like we won big because we weren't really betting that big. You know?
But still, you hinged this episode on the Bell riots and how these riots basically make Starfleet what it is and start the course of direction of fixing the problems that we have. And I just thought that was an interesting takeaway on it because, you know, at the end of this episode, we see Starfleet doesn't even exist because of the whatever course of events happen, you know, as a result of them changing the timeline. But I just thought it was interesting to say that the riots were such a pivotal thing in the development of where we got to in the future.
Mm-hmm.
You know, almost saying that, hey, we need this look in the mirror. We need this time to kind of heal and outrage and voice our displeasure with things in order for us to now move forward into a place where we will get to this beautiful idea of Starfleet working together to explore and help the world, right?
Well, at the time, we were under the assumption that things would go on the way they had been going on for the last 30 years or so or more, which is that everyone got their news and got their information in the same way from the same people. You know, we certainly weren't thinking about Fox News and CNN where people don't get the same news and the same spin on the news. So the idea that a single event, imagine today, the Bell riot, you'd have Fox demonizing the rioters, you know, and I don't have to go into the politics of color and gender and all the stuff that they'd be playing with. You'd have CNN coming from a totally different angle, and everyone would be in their little bubbles having made up their mind because they would have gotten their very specific point of view. But back then, there was still the idea that everyone was watching the same thing, the same news, getting the same information without all the editorializing. And so something where, and we'll talk about that next week, which was the big disappointment of the biggest production disappointment of my 7 years on the show.
Wow, stay tuned for that.
But yeah, that it was going to be rubbed in people's faces of this Bell riot. You know, it was what now looks like a very naive point of view that we had, but it's just how the world worked back then. We all were on the same page, you know, and now, unfortunately, you could have a Bell riot and it's still up in the air. You know, what's happening now? Will there be change? You know, pulling down some statues, I'm all for it, but it is kind of a little bit off point of what we really need. Are there going to be changes in how the police, you know, do their jobs? Is there going to be a difference? You know, we're seeing now all the, you know, everyone's pulling a fucking gun. You know, hello, America, everyone has a gun. You look at me the wrong way, I'm going to put a gun in your face. Are we going to live like this? Are we going to continue to live like this? Will there be difference or not? Will there be differences in November, or will we stay the course we're on? You know, it's very, very complicated. It seemed a little bit more simpler back then. The Bell riots, the answer to everything, you know?
Well, at least one of the beginnings of the answer. I mean, I think that was the idea, but yeah, I mean, on the other side, I think one of the things that is true or has been true historically, it may not be true anymore, is that major social changes usually don't happen without some sort of large incident like this.
Right.
You know, the last time the LAPD did do some sort of reform was after the Rodney King riots.
92,
you know?
I think.
Yeah, and like we're writing this 2 years after Rodney King, right? So we're, I mean, it's not like it's not like we had.
You didn't pull it out of like the 1960s Watts riots.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, interestingly, like one of the pitches that I pitched to Next Generation that I did not sell was a time travel story where Picard and Geordi were in the Watts riots, and so this was a little bit of that too. But we had just lived through the Rodney King riots, you know? And so, and it looked like there might be some changes out of that. I don't know. I mean, obviously not enough, you know? And, you know, the civil rights movement was huge, you know, was a huge and sustained effort, which included rioting, included, you know, massive protests and all that stuff to get some change in this country. So, you know, the idea that a giant riot where hundreds of people died might change the world a little bit, you know, yeah, maybe it's a little naive, unfortunately, like Ira said, but that's what we were going for.
Well, I know you guys weren't shooting to be, you know, psychics or predicting the future, and that's not what you do. You write stories, you tell stories. But I mean, if I pull out the lines from this episode, one of the lines was, "Jobs are hard to come by given the economy." Check. District security got their budget cut. Check.
We need a graphic, man. I wish I knew how to do graphics.
Europe is falling apart. Student protests in France. Check. I mean, I don't know how many of these things I can go down the list, but literally, I mean, it's just like, I just kept saying, check. Man, it feels like I'm watching, like it's so relevant. And that to me is one of the great, just in storytelling in general, is when I can watch it at any given time. And, you know, I can watch this 20 years from now, 40, 50, 100 years from now, and it'll still make sense. It'll still resonate. It'll still be relevant to the current issues, the headlines of the day. And that's what I think that you guys have done so brilliantly on Deep Space Nine, from Far Beyond the Stars to this, to, I mean, just so many different episodes, that they still stay relevant. They still mean something to people. And they still resonate with the audience who says, wow, this totally relates to me, or this relates to the times that I'm in.
Well, that's wonderful, but I mean that sincerely. But I think Robert would agree. We spent a lot more time discussing how the hell they were time traveling than we did about whether there was student riots. Seriously, I'm not saying that as a joke. All that stuff that you're talking about, that kind of flowed. You know, that wasn't, we weren't pulling our hair about, you know, how we were making that history. That was kind of just kind of fun to come up with those little ideas and thoughts, just following the bouncing ball. Once you have sanctuary districts and the homeless and encampments, it's not that difficult to come up with other things that would be happening around the same time. So, you know, that was just kind of fun, I think, right?
That stuff was fun. I mean, look, and you know, it's also, there's a little bit of a Nostradamus effect where, like, we said a lot of stuff in there, and and thank you for picking the ones that were, you know, but like there was also like the Caribbean Union or whatever it was, you know, there was like the
Pan-Caribbean.
Pan-Caribbean Union, and like Neo-Trotsky is controlling United Europe.
That was the line I wanted to cover. I thought that was,
I wrote that
honestly,
down too.
that was the coolest line, the two lines in there, because you said something about the Neo-Trotskys, and then the lady says, well, nothing that the Gaullists couldn't handle, or the Gaullists didn't have that. And I immediately, I don't know if you guys, doesn't sound like you spent a ton of time on that. It's just kind of like, well, what would make sense? But to me, I'm thinking, okay, that is still also something that I could see that could happen 4 years from now. Neo-Trotsky sounds like, you know, communist, super far left. Then you have the Gaullists. Now, Gaul is what France was called way before it was called France. It's like the people that, you know, originally came up. And so maybe those are like the far right people trying to stay pure. I don't know if that's how you meant it.
That was the idea.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that was the idea. But, you know, again, like that stuff is like stuff that Ira and I are coming up with when we're sitting at the keyboard, like just typing like little fiends, you know? And so that stuff is just, a lot of that is like throwaway. I'm not saying we put no thought into it, but I would say we put about as much thought of it as we put into, like, you know, you can't free a fish from water, you know, the Ferengi rule of exposition.
Yeah.
You know, the things that we labored over, as Ira said, we were forced to labor over the tech, but the things we actually labored over willingly were the character stories and the structure of the story and the emotional beats and the the sort of larger drive of the show. And you know, the stuff that you got that people are you know, get excited about, like that, the student riots and stuff like that, where, you know, as a friend of mine calls it, they were chrome. You know, they're not the car. The car runs without that. You know, they're
it's the shiny stuff.
It's the shiny stuff on the outside that you don't really need. It just makes the car look a little better. So yeah, I mean, those things are fun though. Like as a writer, those things are fun to come up with. It's fun to come up with the Grand Nagus's nephew's name and decide what color the oceans are on Bajor and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I just want to say, you know, just because we're here, and so I get nostalgic. You know, at that point, even though it was still kind of early in the game or middle of the game, whatever, but by that point, Robert and I had spent a lot of time together, let's just say, and we functioned, you know, very well together. You know, it wasn't like we had one mind. We both brought different things to the party, but we had a lot of fun being in the room together. You know, I mean, there were not a lot of times where we were silent and pacing and nothing, you know, it was a lot of give and take. And so that energy, I think, was incredibly positive in terms of just getting the work done. And I think certainly a lot of the relationships in Deep Space Nine and the focus on the relationships in Deep Space Nine came about without meaning to, but just came about our relationship and how well we worked together and how much, how easy at times it was. That not that the results were always great, but getting there, you know, was not, you know, painful most of the time. Sometimes, sure. And so I think, you know, a lot of the things that work in the episode work because, yes, the chronoton particles I keep bringing up because that still pisses me off. But a lot of it just flowed from who we were and the fact that, you know, we had the same idea of what it meant to be a good human being and what it meant to be a good friend. And I think that's reflected a lot, not just in the shows we wrote, but in the entire series.
Yeah. You know, it also makes me think too, when I see an episode like this, which is great, but it also seems self-contained and it's not part of the larger Dominion wars and the Jemadar and all the other things that we're seeing starting to get explored. Do you throw these episodes in the middle somewhere and say, hey, we need an episode here, and it doesn't have to fit the whole Dominion story arc? Or like, how does that process work for you? Like, how do you place this episode here?
Well, I mean, at this point, you know, we were still, what'd you say this was episode 11?
11.
Season 3, episode 11 and 12, yeah.
Okay, so it was still in the first half of season 3, you know, and the Dominion, you know, a lot of the heavy lifting was in season 2 in terms of the planning and all that stuff. So we, you know, nothing was written in stone at that point. You know, we were still plotting. I certainly Rick was not aware, you know, where we were hoping ultimately to take the Dominion. You know, we got the Defiant at the start of the season. That was a big win. That wasn't an easy win. So it wasn't like we were that serialized at that point, that it was, you know, like we were breaking form in order to do these episodes. But I have to be honest, whenever I saw those homeless people in Santa Monica, that's what really gave that, now's the time to do it, because now I'm starting to see the episode, you know, and now we're going to actually do it. And it could have been episode 11. It could have been episode 21. I mean, it was just, that was the day that it all clicked, you know, and once it clicked, you know, and everyone,
I mean, that's how, I mean, when you do 26 episodes a year, you go for what feels right at the moment. And you know that, like, if we don't get to the Dominion in these 2 episodes, or we barely mention them, we'll get to them eventually again. You know, even if you take out, you know, we'd 14 episodes left to do after these 2.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, however much larger story we needed to tell, we get to it. We knew with confidence we'd get to it, you know. So when a great idea came up that felt like it was a standalone, even later on, even like Far Beyond the Stars, you know, or Field of Fire, you know, like that was season 7. It's like the idea comes at the moment. You're like, we need an episode. This one sounds good. Let's do it. It won't move the plot forward, but that's okay. And we'll get to it, or we'll put little things into it, you know? So it wasn't like, it was a sort of more organic and free flowing thing than like trying to meticulously structure all 26 episodes to all tell one continuous story. We were just like, let's tell a good story this week. Next week, let's also tell a good story. Some of those stories will involve the Dominion, you know?
And all of them will involve the characters. And the one thing we did do very well is that the characters changed and grew episode to episode. The characters were serialized from the beginning. I don't think Mike and Rick even realized that was just ingrained in the DNA. They put that in there for us. And that's what that's why it was fun to go to work every day, because you knew you were telling their story. And that was more important than the Dominion. It was more important than anything, because Sisko was changing, Kira was changing, Odo was changing. Everyone had a story. Every character, including the recurring characters. That's what made the show different.
I mean, yeah, this is a great episode for Dax, you know? This is a really, the 2-parter for Dax, it's a really interesting story that she goes through.
Excuse me.
And the sort of awareness. It's interesting watching it again, how Dax is so glib to lie. Like, she's so easy. It's so easy for her to just like,
she flipped the switch so fast.
I know how to manipulate this guy. You know, I've got 200 years of experience. I can pull this shit out of my, I can pull this out.
That was fun.
And which was really fun. And it's a big growth episode for Bashir. It's an episode where Sisko, I think, grows too. And that was really, for us, that was really the serialization. Always. Like, that was always the thing that, like, we were trying to build on week to week to week.
Right.
You know?
Good point. That it is a fabulous episode for Bashir. It really is. I mean, it's another one of those episodes where you know, any of those people who had a problem with whatever they had about Bashir, or how we wrote him at the beginning, which was, you know, the beginning of the arc. But this is a guy who's growing in front of your eyes, and all his mind is clicking. You know, there wasn't a big difference in certain ways between Jake and Bashir. I know there's an age difference, but they were both the 2 characters who were really coming of age during the 7 years. And just like you see the growth in Jake, you know, just obviously just in terms of how the size and everything else, but how he's changing and developing, you know, a moral center and his own attitudes. You really see it with Bashir, who starts out with, you know, frontier medicine and being on, you know, all this glib shit. He starts to become a man. He becomes a thoughtful guy who's suddenly realizing there's a lot going on that he needs to understand, that he's not as smart as he thinks he is. And these 2 episodes are really good for him.
Gentlemen, we're going to have to leave it there. We're already out of time, but we could totally listen to you guys talk forever. It's so fascinating hearing you guys talk about this, honestly. And it's a real honor to have you.
Absolutely.
It really is.
Thank you for sharing the insight on the process, because there's so many things here in this episode, and I'm sure I'm looking forward to the next part of this episode. I don't know how it ends, so
it's so cool. It's so cool that Cirroc hasn't watched any of these. I love it.
I know. He's not the only
Mr. Not appearing in these episodes, Cirroc Lofton.
Yeah.
Ira, did you just say he's not the only one?
Well, no. I mean, I know a lot of actors on the show.
Oh, I thought you meant yourself.
No. I mean, I saw the shows. I just haven't seen them in 20 plus years. But I know actors who are very, very identified with Deep Space Nine, who have not seen a lot of shows that they have not been in. So to have Cirroc really be like a stand-in for all the actors. Let's put it that way. And experiencing this is really fascinating to watch. To really see it. I'm sorry that Aaron isn't here to undergo it well, because it's fascinating to look back and to have been a part of something, but yet only being a specific part of it. And now suddenly you're seeing the whole, and we're watching it happen, as Cirroc is watching it happen. So it's
big picture.
Very interesting to see.
It's very fun. Awesome.
Thanks for bringing up Aaron, by the way. Yeah, I mean, he would have loved this. He did one season with us, and he loved every minute of it, and we loved every minute of it with him. And there isn't an episode that goes by that we don't think about him while we're watching an episode and while we're recording one. And, we're always wishing, God, he would have loved this scene, or, oh, man, he would have razzed me about that mistake today, or something. He's always popping up, so it's great to always hear him be spoken about.
Well, yeah, I mean, the seventh rule, anytime I see it written, or I see a Twitter post by Cirroc or by you, anytime I see the word the seventh rule, I think of Aaron. And so, but not in the past. It's like it's keeping him alive now. It's a thing. So it's a good thing.
That's our hope.
Yeah.
Man.
Great. Well, thanks very much, guys. Again, it's been a complete honor. We love having you guys. We love talking with you. We love picking your brilliant minds and hearing. It's like more storytelling. It's like storytelling about storytelling. It's amazing.
Robert, have a good trip. Stay safe.
Yeah, you stay safe too. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, my friend.
Thanks very much. And everybody at home, as Ira just mentioned, always remember the seventh rule. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the seventh rule. That was less than 4 seconds with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello.
We're also joined by awesome people, tons of awesome people like Mr. Homer Frizzell and Marie Segal, Rex A. Wood. It's actually 7 A's in a row. Rex A. Wood, Eve England out in Wales, Heather Jordan, PJ out in, are you still in Spain? I don't think we got the answer.
In Spain, yeah.
PJ out in Spain. TJ Jackson-Bey with his cool fez hat in Missouri. In Missouri.
That's how they say it.
How's everybody doing?
Good.
Doing good.
Great.
Doing good.
So we just
My friends, TJ, by the way, wear those hats. They're from the Moorish Science.
That's right.
That is where I got mine.
Okay, so then you down with the Moorish Science. Very good.
That's right.
Very good. All right. I know a little bit about Noble Drew Ali.
That's right.
Those are facts, guys. It's just a little bit history.
The only facts I know about that is there's an actual city in Morocco called Fez. So I just assumed that the Fez hats originated in Fez, Morocco.
Yeah, if you go back and you find some pictures of George Washington crossing the Delaware, you'll find pictures of people wearing fez next to him. So
nice.
Wow.
It goes back. Am I right, TJ?
You're right.
Yeah.
All right. There's a lot of crossover with that history, but yeah, it's there.
We are
learning
a lot already.
And that
There's a
actually
lot
We
brings us
didn't know
to
you were
our,
coming here for history lessons.
Yay.
well, that
Who
actually
knew?
brings us to our question today, which is, who is your favorite historical figure wearing a Fez hat? Starting with Eve England. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, that's that was the question. It was just
Cirroc
ready to
set
go.
it up for us there.
Yeah. Tough one.
No, we were just reviewing Past Tense Part 1, and we're talking about how prophetic and accurate some of the things are. Like a lot of times when you're watching a sci-fi show from back in the day, they predict all these things, and now we live through it, and they're way off. But our question is, looking at Star Trek or looking at another science fiction thing, what is, whether it's a piece of technology or an element or something that you do want to come to fruition, whether it's something as simple as transporters or whether it's just the Federation as a whole? Is there something in an episode or a series that you wish would come to fruition? we're going to start with Heather F. Jordan.
It's not F. What's wrong with you?
F is a great letter.
It is. It's
Put
solid.
mine in there.
After your microphone.
Can I answer the first question? Because I want to
Yes,
say Doctor
absolutely.
Who wears a fez in I think it's season 9 when Matt Smith comes in.
It's the 11th.
So
Oh,
I
yeah?
just got to answer that. That's my favorite.
Showing
fez.
off the knowledge. Nice.
Okay.
No.
I have a Fez answer too.
Oh, okay. So he's got it.
Wow.
I'm gonna have to say transporters, just because like right now travel is so costly, and just the ability to like step onto a pad and be somewhere else, like I think that would be amazing. You know, that I could go visit my friends in, you know, Las Vegas in California and, you know, Louisiana or, you know, anywhere. So
Alpha Centauri.
Yeah.
Alpha Centauri.
I don't think they reach that far.
Oh, never mind.
Maybe not, but
Booster station. Booster station.
I think that would be the ultimate Star Trek technology I would like to see.
Okay.
What about you, Mr. PJ Thomas of Orville Nation? By the way, shout out to Orville Nation, really cool group. They do live chats. They have some fun. Cirroc was asking me how he could come on the show, and I was like, they're really exclusive, dude. I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They had you as a guest.
I'm on the wait list. I'm on the
Oh,
wait
yeah.
list.
I bribed him. Anyway, what do you think, PJ?
I would say, well, I have a quick Fez answer.
Nice. I love you guys. You guys
See?
are
right.
See, TJ?
you guys are building up
Yeah.
pressure.
I have images of General Patton with like the King of Morocco and some of his helpers in some kind of image in black and white that I've seen at some point when Patton entered Morocco in World War II. And I would say the food replicators, because I think it would solve a lot of problems here.
Ooh, good answer.
What's the first thing you'd order?
Water.
Pizza?
Earl Grey hot.
Good order. Good question. I don't know. In honor of Seth MacFarlane, I'd order a Twinkie because that's what they ordered on the season finale of season 2.
When I think of Twinkie, I think of Ghostbusters. That's a big Twinkie.
That's a big Twinkie?
That's Ernie Hudson's line. He's smoking that cigarette. He goes, "That's a big Twinkie." Whatever.
Okay.
If you like Ghostbusters, you love that line. Believe me.
That's
There's
a
some
distinct
people at home.
Homer
that are
does
just-
not love that line.
No.
You can tell by his face.
What about you, TJ?
Me, I want the warp drive
Nice.
because, like, I like astronomy and whatnot. I really want to see what's out there. So I need a warp drive to be able to go. Plus, it'll be good to get away from here for a while, you know? There's a lot going on.
Take a break.
You're not
Put that warp
yeah.
drive in my Prius, and I'm out of here.
Out of here.
That's a good one.
Nice.
Yeah, otherwise you're just, when you're doing your astronomy, you're just you're looking at the
Yeah,
stuff,
you
but you
can
can't go
just
there.
looking
But
like,
now
I
you
You
wanna
can
can.
travel. Yeah, you can travel. Be out.
Have warp will travel. Marie Segal in
Warp,
her
there it is.
Lieutenant Commander Warp.
That should have come from Ryan.
I know, I'm sorry.
That's
Greg.
that. He just told you about the quality of your joke right there. So,
I'm sorry.
exactly.
I'm sorry, guys.
Anne Marie Segal in the big hat.
Replicators, for sure.
And what would you order? A drink to go with your hat.
Yeah, definitely. I'd
With
get
an
like
umbrella
a Sumerian
in it.
sunset.
Mm.
Oh, and 2 umbrellas.
Okay.
2 umbrellas. That's fancy.
Just like in Picard. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite Fez hat wearer?
I don't know. I mean, it seemed like for a while on TV they were wearing them all the time, like in the 60s. There were some good moments, but I don't have a specific favorite. They always look very stylish.
We should have a 7th Rule Fez hat. How cool would that be? So we could all.
Yeah, does Teespring make those?
By the way, Ira gave us a really good compliment. He said, when I think of the seventh rule, I think of Aaron Eisenberg. And that was one of his lines from this last interview. And I thought that was really great, that his memory and legacy lives on through just the seventh rule and us being here together. So,
right.
Yeah.
And he made it clear too that it wasn't just he thinks of Aaron as in the past, but he says when he sees the seventh rule on Twitter and in posts and things like that, he thinks of Aaron's current presence,
Aww,
and
Aaron's
love
spirit.
that.
pretty awesome. Yeah, absolutely.
it was a good thing to say.
Absolutely. I mean, we love Ira and we love Robert. They've been so unbelievably supportive. They're just so great, and it's just amazing how nice they've been to us, and we really love picking their brains.
They're amazing.
Rex Wood.
Yes.
What about you? Is it Lieutenant Commander or is it Commander? It's tough to tell.
Lieutenant Commander right
Okay,
now.
cool.
Soon
That's
it
right.
will be. Soon it will be Commander. But
Oh,
He got a promotion.
I got it.
Coming up. We got to wait till the Corona.
Yep. So mine would be, because of medical treatment and people having to use needles a lot, I would have hypo sprays.
Nice.
I think hypo sprays would be the best thing for people that have to deal with needles for pain care and stuff like that. Diabetics who have to, deal with insulin injections every day, to be able to have something that would not hurt that way. That was a lot neater and a lot better to do and a lot safer. So that's what I do.
It's a great one. And it's very
Also,
regulated.
Jake Sisko throws a really good promotion party. So,
I do.
yeah.
We should have it at the house in Croatia.
Yeah. Everyone's
There you
invited.
go.
Nice.
DJ's in the house
Yeah.
with it. Nice.
You notice how Cirroc wasn't terribly into that until you said Croatia, and then his eyes lit up. He's like, okay,
Yeah,
now I'm in.
yeah.
Now I'm in.
Oh,
European vacation.
Yeah, we
Oh.
making plans.
Yeah.
Big plans.
I got a Fez one, but I can't think of the name, but you may remember him. Cartoon character that was the
Morocco Mole.
Yes, exactly.
Oh.
Exactly.
I thought of him or else Get Smart. I love Get
And
Smart.
didn't Secret Squirrel have somebody with
Well-
him that had a Fez too? That may
I
have
thought it
been.
was the two of them together.
I think it was
Yeah, they were
Bulls. It was Bullwinkle, Rocky
Yeah.
and Bullwinkle.
Yeah,
One of
yeah.
them.
Yeah, one of them. Yeah,
Did Boo Boo Bear wear one?
yeah. I think I saw one.
Boo
with
Boo
him.
Bear.
Yeah,
Bear.
like
Yogi Bear.
Yogi and Boo
Yogi
Boo,
Bear.
isn't it? Was it his
Yogi
sidekick,
Bear.
or was it Yogi?
Boo Boo.
I feel like I think it was Boo Boo was the little one. I think I remember
Boo Boo was the
him
little
wearing one sometimes.
Yogi and Boo Boo. You're okay.
Yeah.
Well, Eve, I'd like to apologize for the last couple minutes.
Oh,
But,
all right. That wasn't me. I was like, what the hell is that?
Yeah, where did we go?
Where did
Sounded
everybody
like a
go?
boo-boo.
Eve,
break
do you
in?
have an answer for us?
I mean, I think a sensible answer obviously would be something medical, like a tripod, would be so useful. But to be really fun, I think if I had the choice, I would probably go for the holodeck, because I just think
Amazing.
you could just do whatever you want. You can go play sport, you can go on holiday. It would just be so much fun. So I think, yeah, if I wasn't trying to save the world, then I would choose that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
There's a lot of things that happens in the holodeck that stays on the
Days in the
holodeck.
holiday.
Yeah, I like that one.
Who has to
Sometimes it
clean up the
doesn't stay on the
holodeck?
holodeck though. Sometimes
It doesn't have to, but it probably should.
Probably will.
Yeah. Make sure you bring your Clorox wipes.
I was
No.
You got to wipe that holodeck down really good. I don't trust
Like
it.
after you use the equipment at the gym, you just have to like wipe it down.
Yeah, you got to wipe that
just wipe the
holodeck.
whole thing down.
I'm just
got
going to think
somebody
of that
with
as a COVID-19 reference, Cirroc.
Yeah, that's what I
They've
meant.
got somebody
Yeah,
with
that's
a
what it
bucket
is.
and mop.
That's exactly what we're
Bucket and
talking
mop,
about.
they just- bucket and mop.
Eve, forget what I said about those previous 2 minutes. Forget.
Yeah,
just
this was even worse.
take out this 1 minute here. The boo-boo thing's fine, actually. You wouldn't happen to have a favorite Fez head, would you?
To be honest, the only one I can think of is Tommy Cooper. This is the only person I can think of wearing.
Tommy Cooper?
Yeah, Tommy Cooper. Yeah, he's the. I don't know if you guys know him. He's quite an old. Well, he's obviously dead now, but he's a was a British sort of comedian.
Okay.
Mm.
Nice.
Nice.
Homer, what about you?
For the Fez, I will go with FDR because he was a member of the Shriners.
Yes, he was.
And I'm not trying to save the world. I just want it to not implode. So I would go with Replicator, assuming everyone has access to the replicators, which is, of course, is another hurdle to be jumped
Marquee,
over.
don't steal them all.
Good point. Nice poster in your background, by the way. I didn't notice that at
Oh,
first.
thanks. Thanks.
Yeah, Captain Nog
Matches
Forever,
my
right?
shirt.
Yeah.
Matches my shirt.
Very nice.
Oh, you've got
Where's-
oh,
Let me see your shirt.
Hold it up
Oh,
again.
yeah.
Okay, there we go.
Nice, Heather.
Gorgeous.
There you go.
Captain Nog forever in our hearts.
I know you can't quite see it in my camera view, but
What about you, Cirroc? Lofton?
Well, I have to really second Eve's comments. I feel like the tricorder would be the most like practical thing, and I'd use it to help people and find out what their ailments are and maybe heal them. But then for like personal use, I would want a holodeck. I'd want a holosuite.
What? Like for what? Baseball games, right?
For traveling, mostly traveling, hiking, bike riding, stuff like that.
Fishing.
baseball.
Fishing, baseball,
Badminton.
sports
whatever.
activities. Play one-on-one with Michael Jordan. Different things.
Marta.
Yeah, different things. Yes.
Dabo.
Yes. You didn't say Martok, did you? Okay, good. So yeah, that's
He's
my
gonna
answer.
go revisit his Dabo girls in the holodeck.
Any memorable Fez wearers, Cirroc?
Memorable. Well, I mentioned him. He's the Noble Drew Ali, the founder of the Moorish Science of America. Gave us a lot of game, and his mind, the way his mind works, is just as a free thinker. I like people that use critical thinking, and that's one of the great critical thinkers. You guys should look him up. His name is Noble Drew Ali, and actually, it could just be Drew Ali if you're just looking for his name. Noble's kind of a title that was given to him.
Yeah, I'll definitely check that out.
How do you spell the Drew? Is it D-R-E-W or D-R-U?
D-R-U, I believe.
D-R-E-W.
All right.
D-R-E-W. Okay.
Yeah, one of you stole my answer. I don't remember who it was, but I just always remember seeing the King of Morocco with the Fez hat. My mother was born and raised in Morocco, so I know kind of a little bit about that in Casablanca.
Oh.
So and they were pretty happy, especially more recently with how the government's been developing, and the leadership there has actually been getting a lot better and better there. So I just remember seeing them with their Fez hats, when I was a kid. It
was Morocco, by the way, that identified the United States, the first identified the United States as a sovereign nation when it began.
Really?
In its founding.
Wow. Really?
That was before my mom was born, but still cool.
Only just a little bit.
Before all our moms were born.
I am learning a lot on this episode of the 7th Rule.
Yeah. What I want
yes.
before we go, I want first contact. I want aliens to come say hello and see what happens.
Say hello.
See what happens. See if they do this, or see if they do this, or whatever they do.
But
They may
what if
already
it's
be here, Ryan.
the
I know.
wrong first contact? What if it's like the Borg or something? You don't want that
Who
first
knows?
contact.
We need a shake
I
up.
think assimilation
roll
would
of
be
the
pretty
dice.
cool, don't you?
You'll think that after you're
You go
assimilated that it's
first.
pretty cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, you
let
go
us know how it
first.
feels.
You get a bunch of gadgets on yourself, and you get to go and assimilate other people. I don't
Yeah,
know.
but you lose all your hair.
You get a good figure.
That
That's
happens
fine. I
anyway
really don't have any
sometimes.
hair. This is all I got.
Cirroc, you said that aliens may be among us. If you had to
Yes.
guess which one of these 9 people is the alien.
Ooh.
I would say it's Anne Marie because she's got
Yes.
a double girls on display.
Amazing.
Yep.
That's it. That's all I have to say about that.
That's all I have to say about that.
There it is.
Great.
Well, I'm a ginger, so that means I'm
Right.
a witch, like automatically.
Oh, does it?
Witch?
I didn't realize that.
Say witch?
I didn't know that's a thing.
Well, that back in like the 18th century, they used to believe that redheads were witches. So
Oh,
and we have no souls. So you know.
Well,
wow. That part.
Oh, you try to say I don't have a soul?
Damn, Rex.
Just
that
glad
was a
we're
good
not
one.
in Salem.
Oh, that was
Well-
All right, Ryan, bail us out.
Polar redheads.
Ryan,
All right.
let's wrap this. You got to give us something. Give us a segue.
Please.
That's okay. I was going to say that's the first time you've ever said bail me out, Ryan. Usually you're like, bail us out from Ryan. Okay. We do have to go. Thanks for joining us on the Free for All, guys. Looking forward to the next one. Very special thanks to Eve England for staying up so late out in Wales.
With her fairy lights.
Oh, it's so magical. I don't know what's going on,
So
but
we're
it just
gonna
feels magical.
Zoom in on it just for a second there. There we go. Look how cool your living room is. We were actually, before we recorded, we're like, wow, where is that? It looks so cool and calm and serene. And she's like, it's my living room, guys. Eat your heart out. It's where I live every day. Anyway, thanks very much, Eve, Rex A. Wood, Homer Frizzell, and Marie Segal, TJ, Jackson-Bey, PJ Tomas, right? Not Tomas, Thomas. And
Either way.
Uh-huh.
Heather FPL Jordan, Cirroc Lofton.
FPL, what is that? Faster per light? I don't know. That doesn't even make sense, but okay.
Yeah.
If
Don't
FTL,
hold me
I'll
responsible to make
Good night, everybody.
Thanks very much, guys.
Thank
We'll
you,
catch
guys.
you next time on the 7th Rule.
Bye, guys.